Hi there and welcome to the channel of A Disappointed Man with me, Jason Kennedy, the Disappointed Man. And today I have part 5 of my grand bookshelf tour, and we're entering one of my favourite periods, the interwar years. So many great writers were active at this time, and as I take you through it, I hope there are some new names for you that you may consider going off and investigating for yourself. There'll actually be 2 parts to my trip through the interwar years. I have so many books from this time. All right, without any further ado, let's begin. Ronald Firbank, homosexual, dead by the age of 40, wrote these extremely arch novellas, and in the very perceptive introduction to this by Anthony Powell, he suggests that Firbank is a mix of Saki and Henry James, and I'd go along with that. Also, a very powerful influence on Evelyn Waugh. These stories are really an acquired taste, but I have grown to love them. If you haven't heard of him and you're really into Saki, definitely worth checking out. Next up, Rex Warner, The Aerodrome, Fascism Comes to Rural England. This is a highly surreal book. It's very funny and it's very violent too. I'm absolutely certain that this exerted a powerful influence over J.G. Ballard. So similar to J.G. Ballard's fiction. This is really good. I'll do a review of that at some point. Then the 2 standard critical works on the 30s. I have them on the shelf, so I'll show them to you. British Writers of the 30s by Valerie Cunningham. Auden, Isherwood, Spender. Okay, this is really good. It's a brick. I only just purchased this, but it's very exciting material in there. And then the other one, the Auden generation, as this group are often tagged. And again, the same 3 figures, Isherwood, Spender, and Auden. This one, Samuel Hines, a very good read. Then, biography of J.R. Ackerley by Peter Parker, who's still alive and very much active on Twitter, well worth following. And I love J.R. Ackerley. I follow Richard Coles and Julian Clary on Twitter, and they are often praising Ackerley, and I'm not really surprised. It's right up their street. Very camp, of course. He's a homosexual, and really so much gentle humour in his writing, and he's a very sophisticated writer too. He wrote this amazing biography, My Father and Myself, where he kind of unlocks some of his father's secrets, and in so doing realizes how similar in many ways his father was to himself. It's such a shame that they were never able to be more open with one another, but it was that kind of Victorian father-son relationship. He's a great writer. He has that capacity to be more interested in other people's lives than in his own. Isherwood has that too. It's really a very difficult quality. I think you're either born with it or you're not, but it can really help make someone a fascinating writer. Here's his Hindoo Holiday, 1927, and Denton Welch patterned his debut novel, Maiden Voyage, on Hindoo Holiday. It made him realise you did not really need a strong plot in order to produce a book-length work. And this book came about at the suggestion of Ackerley's great friend, E.M. Forster. Ackerley was short of cash, and Forster recommended he go out and be the private secretary to a very wealthy Maharaja in India, and so he did. And he wrote this very funny journal of his time out there. The Maharaja was a notorious pederast, and so him and Ackerley spend most of this book chasing young boys around. There's a lot of real carry-on moments in this. Yeah, it's a very funny read. He's a great writer, very underrated. Next, we have Nancy Mitford, of course, linked to some odious tendencies in British political life, I believe, through the Mosley family, the black shirts. Yes, I cannot bring that into my judgment on the work itself, which I've yet to read, but there is that. She was a great friend of Evelyn Waugh. We'll get round to that. And then I have my Denton Welch materials. If you haven't watched my Denton Welch part 1, you can go off and watch it. Here are the novels. I like these E.P. Dutton editions They're from sort of the 60s, I think they are. They're still fairly cheap on eBay. I showed them before, but the supplementary stuff, this is a must-have if you're into Welsh. Fragments of a Life Story gathers together most of his short pieces, many of them fragments or taken from his journals. And there's some really atmospheric stuff here. Some of these stories are actually rather similar to Hemingway. It sounds extraordinary, really, but there's an account of a skiing holiday, which is very similar to a Hemingway story, which also centers on a skiing holiday. Then we have some of the biographies. Micheal De-La-Noy, Making of a Writer. Another edition, or one of my editions of the journals, I think I have 3. This one's edited by Jocelyn Brooke. I like the purple, I like the typography, and I love the photo of Welsh there. This is a nice one to have. Then the James Methuen-Campbell biography. This is possibly Welsh's best painting. It's in the National Portrait Gallery. His self-portrait, wonderful. There are many colour plates of Welsh's paintings in here. I'll show you one that I really like. It's here with the cat. Isn't there something mysterious and charming about that? Yeah, so it's got many more. I suppose now you can find them all on the internet, but when this book came out, they were not so easy to look at. Then I have the hardback of the biography by De-La-Noy again. Love letters between Welsh and Eric Oliver. I'm not sure why we'd ever really want to read someone's love letters, but there you are. They were there in the Harry Ransom Center in Texas, and so an academic bundled them up and published them. And another edition of the journals with the self-portrait with pipe, which I'm very fond of. And that's the first part of this bookshelf tour. Let's dive further back in the shelves and see what we have there. Next we have Patrick Hamilton, Hangover Square, the subject of the first review on this channel, and a quite magnificent book. Really dark, really violent, brilliantly written, really tense. Patrick Hamilton was a truly great writer. Then we have another one of his trilogy, 20,000 Streets Under the Sky, in this great Hogarth Press edition. Oh, no writer writes better about pubs than Patrick Hamilton, but perhaps no writer spent more time in pubs than Patrick Hamilton. That may be his secret, but this is great. It's dark, it's seedy, has its own strange humour as well. I can't recommend him enough. Another one, Slaves of Solitude, not read this one yet. And last, The Charmer, or Mr Stimpson and Mr Gorse. Yes, there's Nigel Havers. It was a TV show in the 80s. Second rate Patrick Hamilton, a little washed up at the end of all that toping, but still, even second rate Patrick Hamilton is still a seriously good book. Okay, so there's those. Next, definitely someone who needs to be rediscovered. William Sansom, a very beautiful Penguin edition here. Selected short stories chosen by the author himself. Movie star good looks, married to an actress, and his work is so varied. And it's perhaps that's counted against him in terms of having a critical legacy. Often compared to Kafka, yes, that is there in some of his work. But there are these Mr. Bean, kind of quirky, awkward bachelors trying to find love. He has a sideline in those, and those stories are really amusing. Sometimes they really do find love, sometimes they don't. There's a very funny story set in the garden supplies section of a department store, and there are some really tense stories in here too. There's one where a boy is climbing a gas tower. That's all the action, but it's brilliantly done. Yeah, he definitely needs to be read more. I have his non-fiction, Westminster at War. He was a firefighter during the Blitz and produced this excellent account. As you can see, I'm really interested in him. Ronald Blythe, Age of Illusion, about the interwar years. Ronald Blythe wrote Aikenfield, a classic book about oral history, where he just interviewed lots of rural types at the end of their life and collected it together to provide this picture of a vanishing England. Yeah, I have that too. That's excellent. Then a kind of sub J.R. Ackerley, homosexual schoolmaster, very sexually frustrated. It's another Hogarth Press, very cheap rather disappointing. The Colonel's Daughter by Richard Audington, a very bitter novel. There was a clamour to have this banned when it came out. And also he wrote a very, very vicious biography of Lawrence of Arabia, which made him even more enemies. But I like this. I like the bitterness there. And it's very dark and funny. He's quite an erudite man too. I like the style. Another of his novels, The Death of a Hero. I've not got to this one yet. Another Hogarth Press. Then, oh yes, Edward Upward, great friend of Christopher Isherwood from their school days and a communist, and he wrote this Journey to the Border. I picked it up and I still haven't read it yet. I have to get round to that. Another T.C. Worsley. So I said he was this rather second-rate writer. This is more interesting. It's him going off to take part in the Spanish Civil War. So yeah, that is historically of more interest to me. Then, the first of many Christopher Isherwood books that will perhaps be in the next part of this bookshelf tour. This is his My Guru and His Disciple, with a decidedly ropey dust jacket. That is his guru. On the back we have Isherwood looking like he's auditioning for a part in Planet of the Apes there. Yeah. This is at the peak of his interest in Buddhism, perhaps more for fans only. Then, Virginia Woolf. So I have all my Virginia Woolf books. To the Lighthouse. Beautiful cover there on this Penguin edition. This one I think is quite good. Jacob's Room. I think that's her first novel, isn't it? I like the opening of that. I like all the light when she's there on the beach. Essential reading, really, not just for feminists, for everyone, is A Room of One's Own and 3 Guineas. I really enjoyed reading that too. It makes its argument in an extremely cogent manner. Then what do we have? The Years. I haven't got round to reading this one yet. We'll get on to that. And that is all that is on that shelf. So I think I will leave my bookshelf tour here. There's plenty more to see, and I shall leave you by repeating my mantra. Be safe, be strong, and I shall see you anon. But for now, nanu nanu.